Welcome to episode 6 of the Liberty Itch podcast. My guest today is Wang. Warren is a Chinese national who escaped communist China and has now been living in Australia for 12 years. Warren's story is in of itself obviously fascinating. What did he do to get in trouble with the Chinese government? What did they do to him? How did he get out? What about his family? But I was also interested in a genuine, first-hand, truthful critique of China and the Chinese government from the perspective of a fellow libertarian, someone whose values I share and make sense to me. Warren is now an experienced Australian small business owner. A cynic might joke that he found the only situation on earth worse than being a political prisoner of the CCP. But I asked him how company ownership actually works on the ground in China. How do the employment laws work? Mostly, how do things compare with Australia? His answers might surprise you. They should also trouble you. Okay. Mr. Warren Wang, welcome to the Liberty Itch podcast. Thank you very much for coming on.
No worries. Thank you. Thank you for the interview.
Now, you are an escapee of the Chinese Communist Party. Why don't you start with a overview of basically what happened to you, where you got in trouble with the CCP 12 years ago, before you left 12 years ago.
Roughly I came to this country about 12, 13 years now, a little bit more than 12 years. And I got a little bit trouble, with the CCP at the time before I left. And Australia was like one of the relatively speaking easiest way, because I want to do the normal way. So like I left the country as a student and just pursue my further studies in an overseas country. So my original sort of idea and the plan was go to America. But then, to study further in America needs a lot of preparation. And I was like a little bit at the time I was still working. And then I was very exhausted, especially, I got the trouble with the government a little bit as well. So I was like, okay, I need to leave as soon as possible, whatever country, And obviously, like English speaking country, Western civilization,
So I'm dying to know, though, what did you do? Tell me about how you got in trouble.
Okay,
and what trouble looks like in China.
Yeah, believe it or not, if looking back, it was not bad. I mean, compared to what's happening over the last decade in China and in the Western country, especially like nowadays in the UK, because based on some of the videos I saw, in the UK, people making posts on Facebook, and then they got trouble. People like police visited their home and then arrested them. So that's actually very similar to what I experienced. So what I did was,
it's not actually any worse or different, is it? It's the same stuff that's going on in China that we demonize as being terrible, but now we're doing the same thing.
That's right, exactly. I mean, arguably China has became worse and worse over the last decade, but at that time, like a little bit more than 10 years ago, that was before the current president. That was the previous president. Previous presidency,
Because you left, you left just before Xi got into power, correct? Yeah. Yes. And it was freer before Xi, if I understand rightly.
Yes, that is correct.
Freer.
Even though at the time, like I didn't really feel that, any sort of freedom, but compared, everything is compared, it's comparison, so.
Well, compared to Mao, it was a lot better.
That's right, of course.
But now it's heading back again, so.
That's right, yeah. But then also like now compared to some of the Western countries, even Australia during COVID, so I feel like to some extent, I feel very, very sad to see the country, even Australia during COVID was like really bad. And I feel like Australia became the country I left behind, so that was definitely bad. Yeah. And I was, there was a time like we with my wife, we were discussing, maybe we need to migrate again to a freer country or freer place, maybe, Texas or Florida, some of the states in America. So that's something we were thinking of during COVID.
I understand because I did it. I left.
Exactly. You did it. Yeah. So, but then but
moving back.
I'm still here.
What did you do to get in trouble with the government in China before you left?
Yeah, so at the very beginning, it was like very simple. I just post on Facebook. Like it's not Facebook; it's like a Chinese version of Facebook. It's
Yeah.
similar with a lot of censorship. So I post something. It was nothing. It was nothing dramatic. It was about that was about 12, 13 years ago. There was a Chinese writer. The name is Liu Xiaobo. He won the Nobel Peace Prize at the time. And then I post something to sort of celebrate what he achieved, to winning the Nobel Peace Prize. And
Sounds like a
then
good
the
thing. Yeah.
particular well, yeah, and then the particular sentence, like the wording I put, got a lot of traction. A lot of people was like retweeting the whatever I posted, and then
Mm-hmm.
I was actually feel like, oh, okay, it could be a little bit dangerous because it's like a lot of retweets, and then I was like, okay, probably I should delete it to be safe, and I deleted
Mm-hmm.
it. But then the next
Mm.
day, I got a call from the local police and said they want to have a
Wow.
chat with me, and
Do,
then
do
yeah,
you
so that was
remember?
kind
Do,
of
do, do you remember what you wrote? Like, was it deeply offensive to the CCP or?
not really. I was saying something like Dr. Liu was speaking on behalf of, speaking for the Chinese people, but now he cannot speak and we should speak like for him. So something like
Okay.
that.
Uh huh.
Yeah. So it's nothing
Yeah.
like personal. It's yeah,
Yeah.
it's nothing dramatic. Well, like I said, it's very similar to some of the things that are happening in the UK. From what I heard, from what I saw, nothing dramatic, nothing personal, nothing like
It's it's
incitement.
it's more critical than some of the things in the UK now. I mean, they've
Yeah,
they've gone crazy. I saw one
yeah,
the other day
exactly.
where somebody posted on Facebook that one of the local members behaved terribly and should resign, and the
Yeah,
police came around to their house to saying that the person should resign. Like, you're not exactly calling for violence against the person. It's just sort of
that's
like,
right.
yeah, expressing a political opinion. So yeah, yours
Yeah,
sounds more directly critical than the
true.
things that are happening in the UK now. It's crazy.
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the starting point, and
So
then
what happened?
because
They
I was
called
like,
you, or they actually visited you about your social media post?
well, what they did was they called me, asked me go to the local police office and asked me to write like a confess what I did was not good, something like that. So that
Right.
was the start. The start was not too bad, and then it came. I think it was 2011 or 2010. I can't remember exactly, but that was the Arab Spring happening in the
Mm-hmm.
a lot of like African country, Middle East countries, and then
Mm.
in China there were like some a little bit like a roots about want to bring some sort of revolution or some sort of reform, some changes, and then some people are like posting online as well, and then like it's like more like online community. So we have a few people, similar minded, because I was writing a few like articles as well at the time, and then gathered a few,
Critical articles about.
a little bit critical, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, critical articles. But still, I mean, it's nothing like I never say okay, well, CCP need to sort of nothing directly. I
Mm-hmm.
know this is too dangerous. I didn't even do that. It's more based on particular things, for example, or based on COVID, based on, whatever happens, at particular things. It's more things based. It's instead of like a very sort of big
Yeah, yeah. You're
picture,
commenting on
say,
a,
oh,
a
CCP.
particular event or topic rather than
That's
generally
right. That's right.
speaking the CCP's bad or something.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
it's very specific things. So it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really directly relate to the party. Sort
Mm-hmm.
of. I'm not like. I mean, if I do that, I mean, there's no way I can post it. I mean,
Yeah.
the
Okay.
websites they were censor it directly. So, but then via those writing and online communication, so we have a few people, or quite a bit of people have similar minds, like we are doing like Liberty each. We have like a small, a few
Mm-hmm.
people. We writing articles. We do a few things together, and sometimes we just gather together, have a lunch or dinner together. But instead of discussing, sports, other things, maybe our topic is more about politics,
Politics.
or
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, or reading books or philosophy. That's economics, those things.
And can I
But
ask, sorry to interrupt
uh
again, Warren, but I've heard mixed reports. Obviously, the Western propaganda is that, China's just a giant 1.5 billion people in a jail cell. And
yep.
then on the other side, I hear that there are protests fairly regularly
Mm,
throughout China.
mm,
They're not stopped viciously, or it's not Tiananmen Square every day.
yep.
You know, which is it? Is it true people can express grievances or disagreements without terrible repercussions, or is it somewhere in between?
Uh, I would say somewhere in between,
Mm-hmm.
but what the West media say is not 100% incorrect. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
overall it's correct. So you have very limited freedom in terms of protesting against like a government or
Mm-hmm.
even the local government. It's very very hard, but it happens like very very rarely. Like COVID was like one of very rare instance because a lot of people, like a huge amount of people, are pissed off, so they
Yeah.
don't care anymore. Especially the young people, they don't care anymore. They went to the street. They hold those like white blank papers. So that was like even like a surprise, that happened in my home city.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
I
Okay.
saw online on Twitter. I was like, wow, it really happened.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I saw the videos. I was surprised, and I was, to a certain extent, I was shocked.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people, they are brave, but I think in another sense, it's like the government is really pushing them very too hard, and there's
Oh.
no other ways. They have no job, they have no food, so like what you lose, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and there was one video I saw during COVID in China was um the people are like making complaints, and the police are visiting some of the families, say, look, you can't do this or can't do that, and you have kids, so they are sort of threaten them because they have kids, and
Oh,
what
wow. With the
yeah,
inference,
and
we'll
that's
take your kids off you kind of thing, or
some kind of like that. Yes, they say, if I come, I can't remember the exact wording, but it's more like, don't forget you have your next generation. So it's like a definite,
yeah, yeah, threat.
threatening
Yeah.
wording, and then that person, that video became very viral because that person responded by saying, I'm the last generation. So you can't use that as threatening to me because I'm the last generation in this country.
Yeah, but that's hardly
So
full of hope either. That's really just like, yeah, I've
yeah,
got no hope for the future in this
that's
country.
right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
hugely
so I have
critical.
no hope. So I have no hope. So I won't have the next generation. It's so that video became sort of very viral in China before, obviously before it's blocked. Before
Before
it's censored.
before it's blocked. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So so that's yes, protest is happening, but it's very very rare. It's still very rare. Sometimes it happens in like local, like in a local sort of scale, like a small town, or like similar to maybe like a suburb sort of type. It's a small local sort of protests
Mm-hmm.
against some local policies. But
Mm-hmm.
COVID was like one of the very few instances that people are against a central government policies. It's
So
similar to the chairman protests.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's like everywhere. It's not only in Beijing, it's in different cities, and obviously it's ended in Beijing, but it started in multiple cities at the same time. So COVID, at the very end, like I think it was 2022. So it's very similar. So different cities, they have different protests everywhere. And then, China suddenly changed the policy. They just open it up.
Yeah, yeah,
So they
just
didn't have
stopped.
any
Yeah,
plan.
like
Yeah,
everybody
just,
else. Yeah.
yeah, that's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do you still
So,
have, you've still got your family, your parents still in China?
yeah, they're still there. And
Yeah, okay. So you've got close
they got
contact,
some
so you
issues
knew what
before.
was going on during all of this.
That's right. Well, it's very bad because there was so basically there are three people living together, my parents and my grandpa, so three old people,
Yeah.
and my grandpa is like 90 plus years old. It's like they eat very minimal,
Wow.
they eat they don't, because they are old, they don't eat a lot, and they are not used to like eat a lot, so they have very small consumption of food, but
Yeah.
even like that, like people like them, there was a time in Shanghai they had they, my mom was telling me they only have 2 days food, and that's it. And I would assume 2 days food probably, if for you, probably just
Yeah,
like
one
not even for
meal.
one
Yeah,
meat. Yeah, one
yeah,
meal. Yes,
yeah.
that's right. Yeah, so it was very bad. So
Holy.
yeah, and they definitely they were not the worst. So a lot of people experience much worse things in China during this like a very very harsh lockdown. So it
That
was, yeah,
distance.
but that
Okay.
wakes a lot of people. I found like last time when I went back, I talked to quite a few people I knew from like my uni time,
Yeah.
and a lot of people say they changed their minds because they have more time, because they are locked down at home, they have nothing else
Yeah,
to
that's
do,
right. You
they
have a
are
lot of
reading
time to
books.
think. Yeah,
Yeah, a lot of time to think, right? So they are
yeah,
thinking of the logic of government, the logic of authority, those things. And this one good friend said, whatever I told them like 10 years ago, now they understood. So it
yeah.
was it's very fascinating to
Yeah.
listen to that.
Government
Yeah,
shouldn't
yeah,
let people think about government too long because people might come to the realization that
that's
yeah,
right.
it's just not a good
Yeah,
thing.
it's
Yeah,
that's true. That's true. Yeah, and because of
interesting.
that, economy is not good as well at the moment. A lot of people are suffering because of the economy downturn as well. Yeah,
Yeah, so that's a real thing. That's being felt
that's
there. I
real.
mean, I
That's
know
definitely real. Yeah,
obviously the housing side of things with the collapse
true,
there. Is
true,
that the thing
true.
that's
Yeah,
really hitting people, or is it more general than that?
and it's a lot of things. Housing is definitely one of the majorest problem China is facing.
Mm.
For some city, like quite a lot of cities, even the big cities like Shanghai, Guangzhou, Beijing, the property price probably already down like 30-40%. It's quite
Wow.
common.
Yeah.
And then for some like smaller cities, it's like 70-80% decrease. So
Oh,
it's
jeez.
huge. It's
It's that.
definitely huge.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Geez. So that's
it is very bad. It is very bad. Yeah, because the oversupply is definitely a thing. So for some big cities, because people are still moving in, and the people still want to move in to those big
mm,
cities. But then for those second tier, or like those like tiny cities, people are like, it's a huge outflow of people, and then the
right. Yeah.
property price will definitely going down like by a lot. Yeah.
But the property prices were massively inflated, and it was. I mean, this.
Oh yeah,
Again,
definitely.
I don't know. I've never been to China. So
Yeah,
I
it is
I can only go with what I've
inflated.
heard.
Yeah, but I mean, to some extent, I would say it's similar to the whole monetary system is inflated. So that's
Mm.
what Australia is, we are experiencing the property prices going through the roof. US, it's all like keep increasing. And if we look at those like housing price, that those index, it's very similar to the money supply those figures.
Yes.
If we
Yeah.
look at, for example, in Australia, Sydney housing price is very similar towards the M2 supply, so the monetary supply.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's, yeah,
Mm.
yeah, because people are borrowing money to buy the property, so it's all like
Yeah.
created money.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
and the created money are flowing into property market. So I saw that in China, and I saw that in Australia as well. Yeah, Australia is definitely better, but yeah, similar things. Yeah.
But in China, my understanding was you had people like three, four families would get together to buy apartments and things like this. Like it was just everybody, like Australia, was all in on property at the
Yep.
expense of all rationality and reason.
Yeah, I saw this a lot. I saw this a lot because so what I'm doing at the moment is a mortgage broker. So I'm dealing with properties a lot. I'm dealing
Yeah.
with families a lot. I understand, like, traditionally speaking, Aussie, Aussie families are not really supporting. Well, you don't need to support the kids to buy property, right? Because it's not that unaffordable. But nowadays, I saw more and more. It's not only like migrants, like Chinese community, Indian community, other communities. It's even the Aussie, like local Aussie communities. I saw more and more like parents are supporting their kids to buy
Mm.
properties. Yeah, it's more and more common now.
Well,
Yeah,
they have to. I mean, yeah. Particularly with
yeah,
the issue
that's
of,
right.
but you guys don't have in China. You don't have student debts like we've got in Australia, right?
Oh no, no,
No.
it's relatively cheap. Yeah, yeah. true.
Yeah, so you're not coming out of university burdened with $100,000 debt before you even start,
Correct.
and
Correct.
and
Yeah,
yeah,
100%. Yes.
but
Yeah.
you've still
Yeah.
got the
Yeah.
unaffordability of the houses relative to
Yeah.
income. So
Uh, Depends on the cities. Like for those major cities, it's actually much worse than Sydney. So
yeah,
that's why actually, for many migrants, they feel Sydney price is cheap because in like for example in Hong Kong, in
yep,
Shanghai, like a
yeah,
small apartment could worth like $2 million.
yeah.
And $2 million at least you can buy a house here.
Yeah, if I'm not, I think I saw a chart just the other day. Hong Kong was the most expensive in the world right now. Is
True.
that correct?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah,
think still the case. I think
yeah,
Hong Kong
yeah,
also experienced like a big property price drop, but I think they're still very, very expensive.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I think I saw. And Sydney was coming in around fourth, I think,
Yeah, yeah.
in the world.
That's right. Compared to
Yeah.
some of those like big cities, Sydney is actually I don't know how I didn't really look into the details. In Sydney to afford a house is definitely very, very hard. But
Mm.
apartment is still cheap, relatively speaking. Apartment you can still find 2 bedroom, for example, maybe 700, 800 in some not too far away, suburbs. But in China, the income is much lower, but then
Yes.
the apartments is like, yeah, so relatively speaking, it's much more unaffordable in some of the big cities, especially
Yeah.
for young people. It's very hard. So definitely you need the whole family. Like, but then it's like a couple, right? And both like my generation was typically one child in the family. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like all the elder generation they're supporting the younger generation
Yes.
to just buy a property. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's hard. Yeah.
Explain this to me. We hear stories about how it's, next to impossible to get money out of China, but obviously an absolute ton of money has flowed out of China to buy most of Melbourne
Yes,
CBD and the ports and everything else. It's not all the CCP doing all the purchasing. The
that's
the
right.
building that I
Yeah,
used to have my business in Melbourne was bought by a Chinese businessman,
yeah,
as most of Melbourne CBD has been.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Well,
what's the truth there? How do you get the money
yeah,
out, or did it become more difficult since Xi's come in power?
yeah. I would say it's definitely became more and more difficult, but people are still getting money out of the country, and the only difference is, well, for the government they are very strict, and
Hmm.
then it became stricter and stricter. So if you want to get, for example, if you live in China, you have some Chinese yuan and you want to transfer to Australian dollars, you need to have good reasons, and they will check. They sometimes they even want to ask evidence, like why you need this money. Do you
And
have
they
any
would say,
evidence?
I want to buy a building in Melbourne CBD, and they would
No,
go, that's
no,
okay.
no. Property purchase, overseas investment is forbidden. So it's not a reason to get like
Money out.
foreign money. Yeah, that was not a reason. So, well, so this is like for me, I feel like people are still getting money out. The only thing is it's more costly. So they are getting more creative in terms of
Yeah.
how to get the money out.
Yeah.
Um, it's like, well, to some extent it's like all the Western countries try to like put very severe sanction on Russia,
Yeah.
but then people are still doing business.
Yes.
Just it's more different ways. It's more costly to deal with
Yes.
Russia. People are still dealing with Russia. West
Yeah.
just pretend we are not dealing with Russia, but they
Yeah.
still. So it's very similar. So multiple ways. I know there are a lot of money exchange entities here in
Yeah.
Australia,
Yeah.
which I believe that they are legal business. But what they are doing is they use some of their Chinese accounts, so they receive money. For example, I'm an individual. That person, that money exchange company is another. They have some individual accounts in China, so
Yeah.
I transfer my Chinese money to their individual accounts, and then they transfer the money from the Australian company to my bank accounts.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah, so the Chinese yuan still in China, and then the Australian dollars go to another person or another company. But then they also using those like trade like foreign like foreign trades or like wholesale those companies, because they have legit reason to get foreign currencies, and then
Yeah,
they
yeah,
have the
yeah,
codes, they can
yeah.
use money more easily. Yeah,
And obviously, with the volume of trade and goods coming out of China, it's very possible
yeah,
to shift large
that's
sums
right.
of
There are a
money to
lot
buy
of
buildings and things. Yeah,
That's right, a lot of loopholes here and there. And I
yeah.
also heard people using like Bitcoin
Sorry,
to buy
using
Bitcoin,
Bitcoin. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
like
yeah. Yes,
crypto, you know.
yeah,
Yeah, so that's
yeah.
another way. But then they need to have like different accounts. It's just more costly. But if they really want to get the money out,
They
they
can do it.
can still find a way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
So
So we got distracted there. That's my fault. Going back to you. So you spoke you had to go to the police and write a confession about how you
yeah,
wrote
that was
nasty
the
things. And then
yeah, that
you
was the
were with your
start.
group writing other stuff. So did you get into more trouble? Because were they watching you at this point? And was that obvious to you?
Uh, it was obvious to me. I know that the first time I know that they're definitely watching me, because there was a time I sent message to like a group sending message, and then like maybe after a couple of minutes I got a call
Oh wow.
say
Yeah.
yeah, and it was like, it was a tragedy happened at the time, like long time ago. It was like a fire in a high rise, and then people are voluntarily going there just to memorize. It's nothing political, but then for the government, especially for those authoritarian governments, they feel like any gathering, any protest, it's not even protest, any gathering could be dangerous, could be like
Wow.
a political signal.
Yeah.
So we were just discussing, because a lot of people are doing that. They are going to the site, just memorize those people, to put some flowers there. It's nothing political. And then
Yeah,
we
that's
wanted to
right.
do same thing. Yeah, we wanted
Yeah.
to do same thing. But then I feel like, okay, I was probably being, watched. And then they asked me not go. I said, look, I mean, are you telling me not go? They said, no, I'm not telling you not go, but I suggest you not go.
Yeah,
So like things like
yeah.
that,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, we went there anyway. But yeah, so that was it's more still at the more beginning stages. And then the next year, because of the Arab Spring or those like happening overseas, and then the government became more and more sort of nervous. and then and
Okay.
then we got problem because of we didn't do anything, but they thought us would do something, but we didn't do anything, but they thought we would do something. And then like I was put like in those hotels, real hotels, for more than a week, just questioning like tons of things, like nearly like no sleep. It was very bad. It was very, very
Wow.
bad.
You're talking a
Yeah.
hotel
And
with no windows type of hotel. Yeah.
no, it's normal hotel. It's
Oh, it
normal
was
hotel,
okay.
but they use it's normal hotel. It's very like motel, like motel type of like things. And then, so what they did were like two, three people watching me, and then they sort of limit my. I don't think we have. They have no official documents, but they are just
Wow.
like questioning and
Mm-hmm.
asking for cooperation. And it's
Mm-hmm.
more like, okay, it's like a secret guys. I never saw them wear a uniform. It's yeah, it's like those what they call it, like states
That's scary. Yeah.
secret
Undercover
services. Yeah,
type.
it's
Yeah. Feds.
that's right, that's right. Yeah, I
Mm.
was because I was in that, I was okay because I know I didn't do anything dramatic or anything like even harmful. So I was like, should be fine. I didn't really did anything. But they are very scared. I mean, for the authority was very scared, but and then obviously my parents were very scared because they didn't know what I did.
Of
They
course.
feel like, oh,
Yeah.
you must do something very wrong. They are just
Yeah.
very ordinary people. They have no idea what I was doing. They don't really care about politics at all. They're just normal, you know, like a very normal Chinese citizen. So, but then I had like a couple of months like very very bad, and and then we also like there was a time I also met some people in Beijing. One of is like artist, but he is like a dissident as well. He is like a little bit against the government as well. And then the local police thought I was like doing something, preparing something big, we were that just a bunch of young kids, we don't really, we have no plan. We had no plan basically, but they are very scared. They scared that what we were doing would be similar to, the Tiananmen sort of mask before the huge protest. So it's like all the small roots, they want to kill all the seeds. They don't want to see that at all.
Yeah. They want to keep everybody scared so that nobody tries to rise up or even thinks about it. Right. It makes their job, much easier.
That's right. Yeah. They want you to just focus on your things. They say, why you don't, do this or that? Why you don't just focus on your things? Why people are still care about politics? Things like that. So they don't really see, like, we don't want to get anything. This is just our thoughts. We just have some thoughts maybe different to the government, but and to be honest, like, lots of the thoughts I have now would be very different to the thoughts I had like 10 years ago, or 12 years ago before I left the country. Because I was also like in a sort of transitioning into finding the truth, so-called truth. Like we have keep thinking, trying to figure out what's the right thing, what's the wrong thing.
Of course,
I was like when I was in school from my childhood towards like uni, I was like just like one of the most ordinary kids. Don't really care about that. Don't even think about that because there's no way you can think about it anyway. You don't know the things like Tiananmen things. I didn't even know before I was 21 years old. I have no idea what happened.
But these things don't matter when they don't affect your life. It's
and they, to some extent, they didn't exist.
That's right. Yeah,
they didn't exist because we were not taught. That was not part of our history. It's
But you're living your life, and you've got the things that you need to worry about. You got to get your grades in school. Right. You're doing your sports with your friends. It's like
correct.
That's what matters, and the other stuff doesn't touch your life in any way that that affects you. And it's
that's right. Yeah,
it's fascinating though, the motivations behind the actions that you experienced against you. The parallels with what we're seeing in Australia and in the UK and all the rest of it. It's exactly. Like, this is not new. This is just, you don't even need to be any kind of historian to just go, this has happened before. I'm pretty sure of it.
Yeah. I feel like, stop copying China. Don't do that. Don't do that anymore. It starts from the beginning, like the lockdowns, everything, like just what I would expect the Chinese government would do, and then the Australian government, the US government did exactly the same thing.
Do you remember? I mean, there was, for me, one of the giveaways with the whole COVID thing was one of the first people who came out to speak out to warn the world about COVID was Dr. Neil Ferguson. Now, Dr. Neil Ferguson has never seen a virus that he didn't think wasn't going to wipe out the entire population of every species on the planet. Like, this guy has been. If I'd love to go to the casino with him, because whatever he'd bet on, I would bet against, and I would win $1 billion. This guy's never been right about anything in his life. He's the one who's responsible for however many millions of dead chickens and dead cows and dead everything. He's just like, we need to kill everything because this virus is going to wipe everything out. He's always wrong. He's an absolute shill for the Bill Gates Foundation. He came out and he said, there's going to be 8 trillion people dead from this virus that doesn't make most people sick. And it was just like, well, this is, obviously another, Neil Ferguson load of garbage. And he revised his thing down by 99% the day after the lockdowns. But I saw him on an interview saying, we thought when China did the lockdowns that they would never go for that in the West. But then we thought, let's try it, and people accepted it. So you're absolutely right. They literally admitted they copied it from the Chinese. They didn't think it would work, but the people of the West accepted it, and that's why the whole thing happened. And it did. It came straight from China. And you've got
Yeah,
Trudeau, who's been, who's
yeah.
said, I really admire the CCP
Oh
because of the
yeah.
way that they're able to do what they want to do to the population.
Well, yeah, that's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
So
Yeah, and also
yeah,
like Dan Andrews, in Victoria. So it's all crazy
yes,
stuff. Yeah,
100%. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that was really bad. And then the COVID, mandates. Like for me, I was like, okay, if you want me to do something, I don't want to. I mean, if the government want to push something, I don't want to do that because I experienced this like a lot. So like, why in this free country, like we need to like follow those like mandates? That it's
Yeah.
like absurd for me. So
Well,
yeah,
yeah, you literally escaped a place because of the way the government
yeah,
acted, only to come to another country that
that's right.
literally took the Chinese government's policies
That's right.
and
Yeah,
applied them to
yeah.
you again.
Yeah,
It's
that's
yeah,
true.
that
It
sucks.
was like it's unbelievable. Yeah, that
Yeah.
few years was unbelievable. Yeah.
So how bad did it get for you with these? They're interrogating you in a secret halfway house thing, and
Yeah,
then they
it
they let you
was.
go after that, obviously.
Yeah, it was bad for quite a while. For a couple of months, and then so the first time I believe it was like about 10 days, and then they
And
sort of let me
they're
out.
interrogating you every day. They're like coming in to get you to admit to your plans to blow up the parliament, or like, what are they
No,
doing?
well, they try to figure it out whether I have any intention. Um, I at the time, for example, I knew one like a journalist in China for a Hong Kong newspaper, and they are trying very hard to see whether I got any monetary like financial benefits from contacting the journalist, but which I
Hmm.
didn't. But they are like investigating like a lot, like
So
bank
they thought you were
accounts.
involved in espionage and you were actually selling
Yeah, that's right.
state secrets.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, even though there are no secrets like ordinary people can get, but
And how old were you at this time? You're like 19 or 20?
no, 20, 21, 21, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
21,
But you're
22. Yeah,
very,
it's
very young and unlikely to have access to the nuclear missile
secrets.
silos to be selling
That's
state
right.
secrets or anything.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But yeah, they worry about those things. They check my computer. They want to see any sort of connection to the foreign agencies or whatever, and then after the worst sort of period, they still try to contact me like on a weekly basis, and one of the funniest thing was, um, so there was like local level officials authorities contact me, and there were like a higher level, let's say one is like a suburb, another is like a big, not even suburb, like a small sort of like town center area, covering like maybe I don't know, like less than 10,000 people, and then one is like a upper level authority, and then there's another level is like for example like state level. So there are
Hmm.
three, one very local, one is like a little bit higher level, and then another is like
Yeah,
state level.
like Australia, your local council, and then you've got your state government, and then you've got
State
your
and
federal
federal, yeah,
government.
it's like
Yeah.
that, right? And then different level, they contact me for different reasons, and then similar things, but then they don't want to let the other people know each other. So, for example, state government, state police, um, sort of have a conversation with me. They don't want the local police know that they contact me. So they are
Okay.
like
Right. Yeah.
separating each
Yep.
other. Yeah, it's like well, to some extent, I feel like okay, I'm sort of like an asset to them, and they can make money from there. It is true because um, there was a time I was going to another city, and they visited me to the other city, and we had a very nice lunch together. And at the end of the lunch, they buy some more like cigarettes, and then they say, well, basically they are covering everything one bill, and obviously it was because of me. So because of me, they can went to the other city, they can have a very nice lunch, they can have
Yeah.
travel, play, and all appeal to like related to me because of me, so to
And at
some
this
extent I
point,
feel like okay, it's an asset.
at this point, they basically know that you're no threat to anything, and you're not
Yeah,
involved in any,
definitely,
and you've got
definitely.
nothing.
Yeah,
Are
well,
they
I
trying to?
believe they knew. Yeah, I believe they knew. Yeah,
Yeah. But
but
let's
then
question the guy over a nice lunch anyway, because hell, it's a nice lunch for us.
that's right. Yes, exactly. And I feel like this was also a problem. I believe it's still the same thing in China. Is because for those governments they want budget
Yeah.
and they need to say I have certain things to do, right? And
Yes.
if I don't have certain things to do, I have less budget. So
Yes.
they need to keep many people in their book.
Yeah.
And they say, okay, look, I need to cover these people, and these people have the potential threats, this or that. But I'm working very hard to keep them in the line. So I believe that was what they did. They
It,
spent a
it's
lot of
it's
money on me, which I had no threat.
it's absolutely
Yeah.
real. I mean, that's how government works all over the world.
Yeah, that's all over the world. Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like it's not like China. So the logic of the government, and that was actually roughly the time. So I actually have like a different. Like I have quite a few changes like over the last, let's say, 15 years. So from very apolitical person to I'm interested in politics, but then my feeling at that time was the Chinese government was bad,
Yeah.
but it was not the government was bad, but Chinese government was doing bad things. But then they should do good things, and then that was like a certain stage. It's pretty.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I look back today, it was like a left wing sort of
Yeah. That
pro
naivety. Yeah. It's
democracy.
yeah.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
I want the government to do more. They are bad because they did bad things, but they should do good things, and then it's a
And
good
then all the
government.
problems will disappear. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, and
Yeah.
then towards a stage like, oh, okay, well, actually, all the governments are bad. So that was like a few transitions.
Mm-hmm.
I myself experienced. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, it
well,
makes it. It's a logical thing. Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
So
If keep thinking, then yeah, going to here where I am now.
so then how did this your suspected espionage activities then affect your getting out of China, because you used a student visa, so you came to Australia to study, correct?
Study, yes, correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So going overseas for study was my original plan. So I didn't sort of change. Well, the only difference was initially I wanted to go to America, but then I came to Australia because it's a relatively easier process to be for the entry process for a university degree.
Mm-hmm.
Like I did a master's degree here, so the initial process is relatively easier. And because I had a lot of like about work and about they want to meet me every week. I don't really have. I need to think like different things at the same time, so it's too exhausted. I want to leave as soon as possible. So I did a study. I did like English tests, and then because I already have the uni, study records, so translate everything and then apply the school here. So that's and that, the whole
So
intention was
you'd,
like
you'd been to Chinese university and you'd already
I
graduated.
studied bachelor. Yeah, I finished bachelor degree in China and I
Oh,
worked there for 3 years, and then I
oh, okay.
applied like a master degree here. So and
So
then
you
yes,
just
I
came
wanted to
across to do your masters.
master's degree. Yeah, so that
Mm.
was the plan anyway. So they knew that like at the beginning, and well, that there was another thing I found interesting is for certain people, the government want you to go. For certain
Mm.
people, they don't want you to go. They want
Mm-hmm.
to keep
Yeah.
you inside the country.
Yeah.
So I don't know their standard, but I feel like okay, for certain people, they feel if you go out, you don't have the soil to make things happen, so they let
Mm-hmm.
you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, but for other people, they want to sort of lock you inside the country because maybe um
You
to
could
like
keep sending influence back to China and actually causing problems.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. So
Yeah.
they let me go, and then, well, obviously they want me to keep in contact. At the time I
Obviously,
left,
because you're
they
such a threatening person. And
they were at the airport at the time I left. So I was there. My parents
for
were.
you, or they just happened to be there, or they
No,
actually
no, no.
came?
They told me they will be there,
Yeah.
and then they call me. They ask me just go, just have some final, well, not final words, but kind of final words, on the side. So my parents were there. They didn't. They didn't even know, and then we had like a few, nice chats, and then I left. So so
Did they
it's
threaten
crazy.
you or anything, or just it? They were
No,
just having lunch
not
again.
really, not really. I think the whole intention is more like, okay, I want you to know that we are here and we are watching you. So I think it's more, and if when you go out, behave, something like that.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
think they worry me too much. I
Yeah,
was not.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
didn't.
somewhat an
I
empty
didn't do a
threat,
lot.
but it's just something to make you nervous anyway before you think of
That's
doing
right.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then obviously once I left, I didn't have any contact, so I basically cut off everything. But then they like more or less harassed my parents like a couple of times. But then after that was overall it was okay for quite a few years now. So
So
yeah,
how long did you have to
but
stay
they
away before, like when did you stay in Australia? So you finished your masters
yeah,
in
yeah.
business finance?
Yes, well, I finished in accounting, so I
Okay.
finished a degree in accounting business, and then I was like trying to get my permanent residency.
Yeah.
So I still did the normal way, like the skilled, what they call it, like skilled migrant visa. So to meet certain points, do this, do that, adding more points, and then passed.
Okay.
So
So
to
you had
get
to
my
work for a local accounting-y type firm for a while and
that's yeah, still get the experience, like finish the English study to a certain point, and yeah, and do good in other like studies basically. So
so
it
how
was
long
yeah, it
before
was
you actually went back for a trip to China?
um okay. So it was like so the first time I went back, I didn't go directly to my home city
Mhm.
because I based my understanding whatever they have about me, they are not sharing with each other. So I went to a different
Mhm.
city and then I went back home. So and I feel like okay, overall it was fun. That was after I think 2 3 years. Yeah.
Okay.
So I stayed yeah. Because I mean at the time I left, like I didn't have any, for example, criminal like a record.
Yeah.
Everything they did was more secret. It's more under the table. It's more chats. They don't want. They didn't. I believe they don't want to acknowledge this happens. And there was no evidence. So they don't want to say that, and I don't think there's any evidence. And once I left, I think they just lost one assets. They can claim all the things, but then pretty much that's it. I think. Yeah. Yeah, and
Interesting.
and 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 also
It,
and also I would say, in the old days, the China has a very good civilian sort of system, like data gathering, collecting system, but still that has been improved tremendously over the last decade. But
mm,
before that, I
it wasn't
believe
that
it was
sophisticated
relatively, yeah, it was relatively weaker than now. So
because
I mean, similar things in Australia. Yeah, I feel it's very
yeah,
similar. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, the integration of systems between
that's right.
agencies and things is something that's been happening absolutely
Yes.
everywhere. And
Yes, yes, yeah.
it's interesting what you said. I saw an interview a while back
Mm,
of somebody trying to explain in the US the domestic terrorist nonsense that's been
okay.
going on, and it's essentially exactly what you just said then that it wasn't actually a malicious kind of let's go
Yeah,
after our own citizens. It was more after the war on terror. You had all of
yeah.
these agencies and all of this apparatus set up, and they're like, where
Like,
do we go looking for
yeah,
terrorists now? Well, we need to look inwards. And once
that's
they'd
right.
identified everybody, it was just sort of like,
Yeah.
well, we need another target or we're out of work. And so they started targeting, Christians
Tulsi
and
Gabbard.
people who, carry a copy
Yeah,
of the Constitution around with them and
that's right.
calling them domestic terrorists and harassing them,
Yeah,
not because of any kind of global government malicious plot against good people, but
yeah,
yeah, it was,
yeah. Is that Tulsi Gabbard? She
yes,
said after she questions, against Kamala, and she was put on those like terrorist list.
yeah, no,
That was
well, no,
crazy.
that's I saw an interview with Tulsi where she was saying when
Yeah.
she went up against Hillary, and she said the people in
Yeah.
the
Oh, yeah.
office like
Here.
just
Yes.
it
Yeah.
just went quiet, and everyone's like,
Mm.
are you all right? Are you deliberately committing suicide? Like, should
Yeah,
should
yeah,
we
yeah,
already
yeah.
start alerting your next of kin that you're going to be you're going to have your brakes fail on your car, or maybe the plane that you fly in is going to have an engine
Yes,
failure?
yes, yes, yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
it was just yeah, you
That's
crazy,
crazy.
really
That's
really
crazy. Yeah,
crazy. So you
yeah.
arrive. Okay, so you got into Australia. This is to do your masters,
Mm.
and you said you had a couple. You went to Sydney with a couple of grand in your pocket. I still can't fathom that. Like I said to you, Sydney, it's $2,000 is a coffee and a sandwich. Like,
Well,
um,
actually, you can live by it if you really want to try it. I mean, well, it's all about expectation, right? So that's why like sometimes like I do feel um I'm not really like empathetic towards a lot of people because they are so used to get money from the government and they always complain, oh, government should give more money to whatever poor people, whatever. But I would say not. I mean, well, I believe Australia have unfortunate people, but not a lot like really like a poor people. So what I
mm,
did was like pretty simple. I had $2,000 when I arrived in Sydney in 2012. I rented a room in a house. So it's like shared room. So one
hmm
room at the time was 150. So at the moment you still can find like any like single room below $200. I know
hmm
still a lot of places. You can still find those places. So
mm,
you just have a smaller area and bills included. So it was 150. So I paid 3 months and I think 3 months bounce. So that was like $900. So I left with like 1,100. And then I started to try to find a job like from day one. So I tried to online search, any casual job, any cash job, whatever, whatever
yeah,
job I can find. Waiters, typically, for a migrant, you don't know anyone, try to find some waiter job in a restaurant. It's easier just to start with some work. Um, so yeah, I started with like two restaurant job. I think in the second week. So that's how I had started, and then just budget well. The key expense is obviously the 150 for the rent, but then the rest is how you eat. Try to cook at
yeah,
home more. And then
yeah.
because I work in the restaurant, so they do have some free meal. Because I work, for example, for the evening shift, they
Clever.
have the
Yeah.
that have the dinner. So yeah, so that's how sort of I started. I would say just live according to your budget, whatever money you have. Try to meet the ends. Don't spend too much. So yeah, that's how sort of I started. So I started one worst job was $8 per hour,
hmm
but then quickly they sort of start to increase. It was not legal, and again, there's no record.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so
But
that's a
even
lot of people.
that's gotten more
Yeah,
difficult in Australia because the way they've gone around that is with the insurance, which is where now
yeah.
to wait a table you need to have a degree in waiting tables and cultural sensitivity of coffee and the
Oh
other
yeah,
garbage so that then you can
yeah,
get the insurance and the cafe can be insured. It's like it's becoming
yeah,
more
and
and more difficult just to try to
true,
do what you say,
true. And the employers are more and more scared of doing this as
mm,
well because some employees, well, they are great. Well, for some people, I feel like it's bad because you agreed to receive, for example, $8 an hour, but then after a couple of weeks, you have like a disagreement with something, with your boss, and
and
then
you
you
go tell the
backfire them,
authorities.
say, look, you just pay me this, and I want to sue you, or you know, go through the legal things. But for me, I mean, like the employee market, similar to every market, it should be voluntary like agreements. If you agree, then everyone agreed. So like why you should like appreciate someone give you a job. So I was like I appreciate those people give me a job. Like at the time I have no money, I know no one, I don't know anyone, and just try
Yeah,
to find
they're
somewhere to
giving you
start.
survival. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Out of interest, what like might sound like a stupid question, but how
mm,
does the social safety net work in China? I mean, it's a communist country, so isn't everyone
yeah,
supposed to be paid? Except I know it doesn't work that way, so everybody isn't paid exactly the same.
that's correct. Actually, to some extent, over the last decade was a little bit bad, but before that, I think overall since China opening up from like 1978, China is actually pretty capitalism. So we don't really have for example, we don't have a high minimum wage. We don't really have good social security. The big cities tend to have better social security, but for those smaller towns, smaller cities, they don't really have good social security because government is poor as well. Government
So
doesn't really have
it's run
money.
at a state level, is it? The social
It's more
security.
state level. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Social security, if I'm not mistaken, it's more state level. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I know that a lot of states, they also have those like deficits. They don't have enough money.
Oh, they're
Those
broke.
issues like
Yeah.
everywhere as well.
Yeah. Massive
Bankrupt.
debts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Then if they bankrupt, then maybe they will need the central government to like
Bail them
lend
out.
them a hands. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bail them out. Yes. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. But it's, um, like for many things, after I came here, even before that, I knew that the Western countries is more socialism compared to China, and
Compared to
that was
communist
actually,
China.
yeah, I mean that was actually like a criticism to the Chinese government, like for my early anti-CCP age. I was like, okay, you claim you are a socialist country, but you have less social security, you have less, welfare
Yeah.
to the people. But you should look at the Sweden, those like all the Western countries, they have good like Medicare, everything. But China like, don't really have this like um very advanced social like those care
Yeah.
social securities. Yeah,
So there's not even the same sort of free healthcare
not
automatically
really.
given? No.
No, you
So
need to spend a lot
so
of money.
Chinese people generally have insurance in China?
Not really.
No.
Not well.
You
China,
just
yes,
die?
we do have insurance. Okay, Chinese system is very it's quite different. And so if, for example, if you're in China, you if you want to find a good doctor, like the top doctor to
Mm.
do your surgery,
Mhm.
so apart from you, on the surface, you're paying a minimal amount, but you still need to pay a lot
Mhm.
directly to the doctor.
From your
It's like
own
a
pocket.
own pocket. Yes, yeah. Otherwise,
And
they won't do your case because it's like they're too busy. They want to sort of level it up. I mean, everyone has so like equal sort of access, but there's no equal access.
but
Yeah,
that's
so,
pure capitalism. It's just
yeah,
yeah,
that's
you
right. Yeah.
yeah,
So you
if you
give
want to get
money.
into the best of the best, well you got to pay to get into the best of the best because there's a waiting list and that's
That's right.
how yeah.
Yeah, but then it's off the record. So just pay like in the red envelope. Just give the money, give the
Yeah,
cash.
but it's
Yeah,
understood, so it's a cultural thing, yeah?
yeah,
It's
that's
just
true. Yeah,
that's
yeah,
how it works.
yeah, yeah. So it's
Incredible.
yeah. So it's not yeah. So yeah,
And what
they
about?
they are
Can I
changing a
ask?
lot of
This is
things.
this is again more of a personal curiosity, and
Mm,
because I don't trust the answers that I get, from the sources available to me.
yes.
But
Yeah.
in terms of private property, because obviously,
Yep.
what was it, Deng Xiaoping?
Yep.
Excuse me, butchering his name, but
Yeah. No, no, it's all good. Yeah.
but he, as I understand, really freed things up and made private property available, which obviously wasn't under
Correct.
Mao. And that's
Correct.
supposed to be the defining characteristic of communism is there's no private property. He
Yep.
opened
Yep.
that up. But we
Yes.
keep hearing accusations that it's not really private property and there's so how does that, I mean, you obviously with the property market you can own a
Yep.
property, or is it a leasehold, or how does it work?
Okay. So the, the leasehold has not yet finished because the leasehold in China is 70 years. And
Okay.
then similar to, well, to some extent, it's similar to Australia's leasehold. For example, in Canberra, the whole ACT, it's on leasehold. It's 99 years lease. And after the lease, I think you pay like nominal like $1 to
To
renew the
extend another
lease.
99, yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, so in Australia we have similar like leasehold thing. So
Yeah.
in China the leasehold is 70 years.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, so at the moment I don't think they started to like renew the lease.
The
So
leases, yeah.
what the government is saying, or they want to comfort or most people believe, so they will let you to renew the lease for another 70 years. without just taking the property away. So that's because if they really want to do that, then all the property value will go to zero
That's
because
right.
there's no value there.
Yeah.
So I don't think they will do that. So the property rights, yes, after done, so the property rights is definitely, I mean, people do have property rights to a certain extent, but the issue, well, my understanding of the issue in China is about rule of law. So there's sometimes because there is a lack of rule of law. If you become rich, if they target you, they can pick and choose, certain laws to target you. And then, yes, they are not saying I want to confiscate your property, but they say you broke this or that law. And then because of that, I need to take the property away. So
But this is exactly the same as the West now. I mean, it's not even remotely different. It's it's like,
I know. It's different scale. It's different scale. So
it's more overt. Like it's more that at least but it's almost more honest, isn't it? It's more like the Chinese are just like, we're going to screw you if you mess with us. Where in the West, it's like, we would never screw you if we messed with us, but then they do. Like,
that's right.
Anyone can be the president of the United States of America except Donald Trump.
That's right. Well, like UK Premier said, we have a long history of freedom of speech. Not really.
Yeah, that's right. The irony of the statement built into it, it's like, we have a history of freedom of speech.
History.
No more
historical thing.
Yeah. Let's not talk about the future or what we're doing now, but we have a history of it. It's really impressive. You should see it.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
So so that's okay. So but then there are property. I mean, you can buy cars, and the car is your car. It's not a lease on a car. So where is the difference between China's private property rights and Australia, for example? Well, there just isn't. I mean, there's that leasehold thing, but like, as you said, it would work against the government's own interest to,
that's right,
not renew the leases.
Yes, that's right. To that extent, again, I don't feel the property rights thing itself. So in the I don't know whether it's in the Constitution or some of the the founding documents, it still remain the wording saying we are a public sort of ownership of. It's not private. It definitely is not private property based. But in reality, what China was doing is definitely based on property rights. So individual does have their own property. You can buy a property. You can buy a car. The leasehold thing is tricky, but people are still
but London's all leasehold. You just go to a real estate office in London, and all of the properties listed in the window are all how many years are left on the lease. And I understand some of that's changing, but it's not so out of the way of what we have in the West.
No. I mean, without property rights, so which is the key foundation of capitalism. Without that, I mean, China won't become the China today. So it's all because of the property rights, and that's starting from the so-called opening up policy. That because people want to have certain ownership, because with ownership they have the incentive to work harder, do better, be more productive. So it's definitely the property ownership is there. So I don't doubt. I don't doubt it. The only difference is, I would say, is the rule of law. I guess have more issues compared to the Western countries. We have our own problems, but the China's rule of law is definitely a bigger problem.
The bigger problem. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, what about in terms of companies in China? If you can open a company, is that is there a shareholding that the government automatically takes, or how's the ownership of that company? No, it's just pure capitalism.
It's nearly. I mean, it's purely capitalism. It's not that hard to open a company as well in China.
And you own that company outright yourself, or you can have shareholders.
No, you own by yourself. You can own with other shareholders, other individuals, other companies. Government normally they are not involved. It's very similar to like the modern company structure. That's almost the same. the if we talk about difference, then I would say the difference is um, when they deal with, for example, tax, deal with some of the like application, like government projects. If you want to apply something,
Mm-hmm.
then that's the bureaucracy came in place. They want to get some extra money, bribery, those things. It's more severe compared to the Western countries, I would say.
Or is it
From the
more
general
overt? It's
observation.
it's more it, it's it's more
Yeah,
sophisticated in the West, I think, where all of the same stuff
it's more
goes on.
sophisticated. Yes,
It's
yeah.
just made to
Yeah.
look like it's legitimate instead of illegitimate.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But China, like especially nowadays, because the economy is not good. So, but then for example, the taxation office, they have certain targets to meet as well. So every year, the tax revenue need to increase a certain percentage,
Mm-hmm.
to look good. So they want to keep those targets, and then they are trying very hard to find all kinds of excuses to find companies
To
to ask them to pay more tax.
pay more
So this is
tax.
definitely happening. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. And
Mm.
so then on an employment level, because I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit,
Yeah,
but you've got
sure.
a mortgage broker company that you've started in Sydney,
That's right. Yeah.
and you said in one of your Liberty Itch articles how you've got about 30 staff working for you, but none of them are, or the majority of them are
Yeah.
offshore.
No, we are not. It's definitely not working for me. Because well, it is true. It is true they are not working for me. Because the way that this whole industry is more people are doing their own business, but
Mm-hmm.
we are
Yep.
sort of like working together as well because I started a little bit earlier and I'm doing a little bit like mentoring service, providing the back end service, and because I'm doing this like for quite a while, so they normally want to come to me to check the scenario, whether this is a deal or not a deal, what potential lender we should send the deal to. So it's more like I'm like a more like a service provider as well. So it's
Mm-hmm.
more like subcontracting thing. So I'm holding one contract with the with what we call aggregator, and then they are subcontracting to me, and
Sure.
then yeah, so it's more like business to business.
But
Yeah.
the same as the issue that I faced is that
Mm.
from what you said, you looked at the employment laws in Australia and just went,
Oh
this
yeah,
this
yeah.
this is just unworkable. How
Unworkable.
do I
Yeah.
build my business to just not get involved in employment, because it's it's such a
True.
minefield of, you can't possibly be right. You're so exposed to risk that
True, true, true. Yeah, very true.
it
If
doesn't make
if
sense.
it's easier, like, I mean, the environment, then probably I will employ some people instead
Yeah.
of letting them to be the subcontractor.
Yeah.
This is one thing, and the second thing is instead of like trying to have offshore, stuff to do the work, I might want to have some, onshore stuff. But those laws, some of the laws, like it is impossible. Like for example, um one of the law passed in the last 2 years. I think it was last year or the year before. It was I can't remember the name, but it is about the employer should not contact the employee after like working hours. I think I can't
Oh,
remember.
yeah.
Do not disturb. I can't remember the name of the law, but you know
Yeah,
what I'm
yeah,
talking about, right?
yeah,
That
yeah,
law is ridiculous. For certain industry, like even for example my industry, because we need to work overtime quite a lot, and sometimes
yes,
I probably
yeah,
don't need to work in the daytime. Well, not like, for example in the morning, but I definitely need to work in evenings
in the evenings,
sometimes
yes.
because we are
That's when
serving
people are outside of work.
clients.
Yeah,
Yeah, we are serving people, and the people they have their own jobs, right? So they
yeah,
need to finish the
yeah,
9 to 5 job, and then they have time to discuss with me. So we
yeah,
typically we have those discussions in the nights, and
yeah,
then of course I need to send some information to the staff, right? So I don't know how strict they implement that law, but if that law is implemented strictly, it'll be very hard for a lot of businesses.
yes.
So, and of course, I don't really want to have that exposure for the risks. So, and then I found the ways to find offshore stuff. So so I just use offshore stuff. It's just easier. Yeah,
It,
it's crazy. Yeah.
what would it be in China then? I mean, in China, obviously the wages are lower. You said that there's no minimum wage. You can pay a person
Well,
whatever
they
they
have a
want to agree
minimum
to. Or,
wage, but
yeah,
the minimum wage is like um
in
normally if you found
insanely.
the normal work, it will be higher than the minimum wage,
Yeah,
so it's not too bad, so I think that reminds me something like a long time ago. I remember I saw a like a newspaper from New York Times, I think in the 19 maybe 70s, so it's like a long time ago. There was one article says like the only correct minimum wage should be zero, which is like what I believe.
yeah,
You can't imagine they said these things now, but they said those things like long time ago. Um, I don't remember the exact like minimum wage, but they have a very minimal sort of minimum wage, and that doesn't really affect the business a lot. Business won't feel like it's a big burden like Australia. Australia, the minimum wage actually is high. I mean,
yes,
nowadays it's not too bad because of the labor shortage. The border was all like closed for a couple of years. So what I heard from some of the small businesses is they are saying, well, even if they want to pay cash, that will be quite similar towards the minimum wage
mm,
nowadays. Um, but that also related to the COVID. Everything was like it's just the business was disturbed. A lot of
destroyed.
disruptions.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So it's hard to say what's the market wage at the moment. Yeah. Um,
yeah. But in China, I mean,
mm,
um, I'll tell you a funny story that a friend of a friend had. They hired a person
yep.
to do a job. Everything was good. Went through the whole process. Person starting Monday. Monday comes, they don't turn up. They try calling up, just going, maybe you
Yep.
didn't realize that we meant this Monday. Looking forward to seeing you. Nothing
Yep.
happens. Tuesday, don't turn up. No call back. Call again. Wednesday, don't turn up. Nothing happens. Following week, call again. No sign of this person. This person's just disappeared off the face of the earth. About a month or two later, they get a letter from a lawyer going, "We're suing you for wrongful dismissal." And
Oh,
they,
okay.
they, they call up the lawyer and they're just like, "What are you talking about? We hired this person.
Yeah.
We were excited to get them to start and they never turned up. They didn't record." And it's like, well, my client doesn't feel that way. They feel that they were wrongly dismissed by you, and we're going to take you to Fair Work Australia unless you pay us out. And the
Yeah.
whole thing was a scam where it was like,
Yeah.
we'll accept a payout of was something extraordinary like $20,000,
Yeah.
because if you want to go through the process
It's
against
more
us,
than that.
it's going to cost
Yeah.
you 30, 40,
Mm.
$50,000 in
Mm.
legal fees to
Yep.
prove that, yeah, you're absolutely right. But it's cheaper just to
Mm.
give us $20,000 to go away than it
True.
is to fight us.
True.
Um,
True.
and these are the sorts of things, as you'd know, that as an employer you look at and you just go, screw this. It's like,
Mm.
I'm not going to be held,
Correct.
potentially liable.
Correct. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just not worth it.
Yeah.
How's
That's
China like that? If
also.
you want to
Mhm.
hire and fire a person, you're able to do it, or there's
It's
similar
much easier.
protections. It's much
It's it's
easier.
it's
Yeah.
much easier. It's much easier. More and more protections because China is sort of like following the West as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, and also compared to let's say 10 years ago, less like working sort of generation as well, I believe.
Mm,
Probably, I don't have the data, but I feel like the country is like evolving itself in term, also including the what they call like labor laws. So the labor laws became a little bit more towards the employee side, but
mm-hmm.
overall it's still quite well. I would say it's still quite balanced.
Yeah.
Some people, well, especially if the left, if from the left side, if you look at the China, obviously China is very bad. They are not protecting employees. But
Yeah.
for me, it's not too bad, and it need to make sense. Some of the Australian, like the story you just told me, it doesn't make any sense. And in China, those things won't even have a chance to go to the court.
No.
So it's relatively more voluntary agreement between the employer and the employee. But obviously, if you have like a long-term permanent contract, if the employer wants to dismiss you, they also need to pay you like N+1 or something like that. You a couple of months salaries for you to
Severance
find
pay,
your
yeah, yeah.
for the next job. So so that's similar things, you know, in China as well. It's but overall it's still much better, and Chinese people are more hardworking, and
Yes.
they're okay with hardworking. You know, it's uh some people are saying,
Culturally,
well, it's
yeah.
yeah, culturally Asian countries like China, Japan, you know, Korea, you know, it's more
Famously,
hardworking.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
But and it's also, but
yeah,
it's ironic, isn't it? It's sort of we call it a cultural thing, but it's also just a necessity for survival. It's been
yeah,
hard for a very
that's
very
true.
long time, so
That's
obviously it
true.
gets ingrained in the culture that way. Where the West, you can see these laws are just getting more and more onerous. It's more
Yeah.
like a job is a right, but working is that's extra.
Yeah, well, I would say it is also a cultural thing as well, because there are many poorer country than, you know, well, Japan is actually a very wealthy country, but they are working very hard. So
True.
I think, yeah, compared to, you know, well, a lot of other countries, even in like Africa, in some parts of Asia, maybe South Asia, you know, in different parts of the world, I would say it's even, yeah, it's even poorer than China. But in terms of the, I don't know, I think it is a cultural thing, but I don't know, I can't explain. But in terms of the working attitudes, you know, the way they treat work, family, etc., it's still quite different
Mm.
between different countries. Um, Definitely, you know, having a hard way to live definitely contributes to the working attitudes, but I think other things may play effect as well. Yeah.
So what now for you then? Like, where are you? Things are going good for your business. You're staying with
Mm.
Australia. Are you still looking at
Mm.
America, or um, how do you feel about the direction Australia is going relative to what you left China for?
Yeah. Well, I hope, first of all, I hope America will do good, because I feel like if America is doing good, then Australia will follow the way. So yeah, I'm sincerely hope, you know, Trump, Elon Musk, the Doge team, whatever they're doing in the US will
Succeed. Yeah.
will succeed. And then naturally I think the other Western countries will copy what they did. So if that's the direction out, it's good.
Yeah, I
Otherwise it
agree.
will be the direction of China, you know. So yeah,
Would
yeah, if
wouldn't you
that's the
love to
case,
see
that would be
Doge
bad.
come to Australia? Wouldn't that just be a wonderful thing?
That's
And
true. That's true.
and
Yeah.
the policy of Trump's, which is for each new regulation, you've got to get rid of 10 old
10.
regulations. It's like, yeah,
That's brilliant. Yeah.
it's
Yeah. Yeah.
just the best thing
Yeah. I
ever.
mean,
Yeah,
a lot of like old, like no one used, you know, those regulations. But then if they want to politically target some people, they will find it. You
that's
know,
right. Yeah,
that's, yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
what happened in China. I knew, you know, they do these things all the time. So I believe, well, based on what's happening in the USA side, the deep state is really deep. Yeah.
Extremely.
It is bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. But
Yeah.
you
So
you are seeing Australia going in the direction more of what made you leave China than, I mean, but it's not there yet. It's not.
mm, mm, mm.
And as you said, UK is obviously going to be, the
Yeah, I
UK
think UK
is
is
really
worse than
bad.
Australia.
Yeah,
Yeah, true.
yeah.
Yeah, I think UK is definitely worse than Australia. And I do see the pushback from the people in Australia as well. Even though at the beginning I would say it's probably like a small minority. And even for the some of the elections, like I would expect, you know, for the smaller parties like the Libertarian Party, the Liberal Democrats at the time, and the One Nation, some other countries, some other parties who were very strongly against, you know, mandates would
Hmm.
got would get a higher percentage of the votes, but not really. So I was a little bit disappointed
Mm.
to for that part. But I mean, it's still good. I can see more and people are waking up to. And some people, you know what? One of the very interesting thing is, because on social media, I don't really care. I post whatever I want to post. And I got some clients, like business, like industry, like colleagues, and some referral partners, like a real estate agent, etc. They call me and tell me on the phone, say, "Look, you said something I'm scared to say
Really?
because they are, yeah, they are, you know, why they have like a group of existing relationships. A lot of people they knew like from long time ago. They are scared to say certain things,
Yes.
and
But
and
more,
like for me, I
but more
don't
for those
have that
business
burden.
contacts than from the government point of view.
No, it's not from nothing to do with the government. So they are like let's
Yeah.
say real estate agents or other mortgage broker or other people. They
Yes.
they don't well sometimes like when we have that conversation, I feel like, well, actually, you can push a little bit harder. You can
Mm.
push a little bit further because you are not really in that dangerous situation. Maybe you will have some awkward conversation in a family dinner, but that's
Hmm.
it. It won't be
Yeah.
that bad if you
Yeah.
really push back. And if more and more people push back, we would already pass that. So that's what I feel. So when I had certain conversation with some of the like local people who grow up here. But yeah, that was interesting as well. Mm.
All right. Well, I think you've answered everything that I've got to answer. That's a
Okay, yeah, all
fascinating
good.
overview of how things are. I've been dying to talk to you about this since reading your first article on Liberty Itch
Thanks.
about defecting, and actually comparing from someone who's lived there, grew and was brought up there,
Mm.
what things are like and how it does compare. So
Yeah.
definitely a lot of food for thought, and I appreciate your
Thanks for
time. Thank
your
you for
for your
sharing your
work.
story.
Thanks.